Hey, I'm Manu Sharma, and I want to tell you a story. It's about those winding paths we all take, and how the things that seem to make zero sense at the time, well, they often end up being the things that define us. It's a story I lived, and it starts where a lot of stories do, in a new place, just trying to figure it all out. When I first came to North America as an international student, I was just trying to get my bearings. It was a brand new country, a totally different culture. I mean, everything was new. But somewhere in between all the working and studying, I kind of stumbled into something that definitely did not look like a plan. But eventually, it became one. And that whole experience left me with this one big question that I keep coming back to. And it's a question for all of us, really. What if your greatest assets, the things that really move the needle for you, what if they aren't the skills you planned for, but the ones you just picked up by accident, simply by following some random spark of curiosity? All right, so let's dive into it. My story kicks off with what seemed like a string of small, kind of irrational choices. And it all started with a simple question in my head. How could a few lines of code actually create something real on a screen? That little spark led me down the rabbit hole of WordPress, into this designer, Brian Gardner. His themes were just so clean, so elegant, and I felt like I had to have them. I really couldn't afford much, but something deep inside me was just screaming, this is worth it. So I made what was, for a student, a completely senseless financial decision and bought a lifetime membership. I had no clue at the time, but that one purchase would pretty much shape how I thought about design for the rest of my life. Of course, everyone around me thought I was just wasting my money. The advice was always so practical, save up for a car, Manu. But I was stubborn. I poured every single spare dollar I had into software tools, plugins, and domain names. I think I owned over 20 at one point. From the outside, it looked totally irrational. But to me, in those moments, it was the only thing that made any sense at all. And this obsession, it turned into a full-blown ritual. For 2 solid years, my weekends belonged to a university computer lab. This wasn't for some class or a grade. It was purely for the love of building stuff. And it was in that lab that I really started to develop what I call a builder's mindset. Picture this. Every Saturday and every Sunday, a buddy and I were in that lab. My sister would pack our lunch and dinner, and pretty much the only money I spent was on coffee to keep us going. I wasn't following some syllabus. I was just building anything and everything that sparked my interest. Tiny experiments, little personal websites, forums, most of which, honestly, no one ever saw. Now, here's what's really interesting. The stuff I learned during those weekends, it wasn't just about code. It was about discipline. It was about patience. And boy, was it about humility. It was about learning how to troubleshoot when everything breaks, how to think like someone who creates, and how to make something out of absolutely nothing. These are the lessons you just don't get in a textbook. For the longest time, these skills just felt like a random hobby. But then, really slowly, the dots started to connect. Those little side projects began to form the actual foundation of a real career, one that I could have never, ever planned for. In fact, the startup that my sister and I built together, OAK, it was born directly out of those weekends in the lab. The work we did was this perfect blend of strategic problem solving and web development, and my part came straight from that curiosity I'd spent 2 years chasing. Then another dot appeared. My mentor, Michael LaChapelle, he introduced me to this framework called business model generation to help us with our startup. But true to form, my curiosity completely took over. I didn't just want to use the framework, I had to understand it inside and out. So I took it apart, I experimented with it, and in doing that, I accidentally stumbled right into the next chapter of my career. I mean, just look at this path. It's wild, right? It started with just tinkering on websites in a computer lab. That led to founding a startup. The problems from that startup pushed me to master business frameworks. And that mastery, in turn, became the bedrock for a decade-long career in strategic coaching. It was anything but a straight line. And this is where you can really see the ripple effect. What started as just a simple idea to share one of those frameworks on my website, it eventually led to over 6,000 hours dedicated to helping other people grow their own things, spread out over more than 2,000 conversations. All of that from a hobby that once seemed pretty useless. But look, my story isn't some unique, special case. It's really just an example of a much bigger truth about how value gets created these days. It all comes down to the power of combination and why the world is increasingly rewarding people with unique and sometimes totally unexpected skill sets. So here's the bottom line. The world doesn't really reward those straight, predictable lines anymore. Those clear career paths are becoming a thing of the past. Instead, what the world rewards is combinations, the unexpected, powerful intersection of different skills and passions. Just think about it for a second. A cricket player who teaches themselves video editing on the side, they don't just stay a cricket player. No way! They become a powerhouse content creator who can coach and inspire thousands of people online. It's that combination that creates something totally new. Or how about a marketing student who gets obsessed with business strategy? They don't just become another marketer, they evolve into a thought leader, someone who can see the big picture and guide entire industries. Again, it's that special blend of skills that makes all the difference. And one more for you, an engineer who puts in the hard work to develop amazing people skills. They don't just solve technical problems anymore. They become an executive leader, someone who can build a culture, inspire huge teams, and drive strategy at the absolute highest level. So this all brings us to the main takeaway. If you can't predict which skills are going to matter, what are you supposed to do? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple, even if it isn't always easy. Follow your curiosity. It's a call to just embrace the unplanned journey. Because the truth is, we don't always know what's going to matter. We can plan all we want, but the things that really shape our lives, they often start as these quiet little curiosities. So please, remember this. The things that don't make sense today are often the ones that make all the difference tomorrow. So I'm going to leave you with one final question to really think about. What's that stubborn itch that you're chasing when nobody's watching? You know, that thing you explore just because it feels right. Pay attention to that. It might just be the most important work you're doing. This breakdown was written and narrated by me, Manu Sharma. If you want to dive deeper, you can explore the full article over at manusharma.ca.